When I wake up, my arms are wrapped around me tight, protecting me from something I can't name. My heart is racing. I take a deep breath to try and calm myself down. Everything hurts. I am trapped exactly where I am. The darkness of my anxiety wraps itself around me and whispers in my ear, "You can't be serious, right? There's no way you're doing anything today." I know that the first step is to get out of bed. I place my hands down on the mattress to get up and, "You can't be serious, right? Besides, you know you won't be able to handle what's out there." The what is never clear. It could be anything: light, sound, people, life itself. Besides, no one's gonna put up with you when you're like this anyway. I know that I need to get up. I know that I need to get moving, but I can't breathe, and my heart won't stop racing, and it feels like the sky is ripping apart, and I never know how a morning is going to hit. Most mornings, I wake up eager and excited to hop on my bike and make the 5-minute commute to the beautiful school that I work at. I am very blessed. Some mornings, I am fighting my way out of a deep, dark hole. I've been managing anxiety and its cousin depression since I was a kid. Like most people you can think of, I've tried nearly everything in an attempt to defeat panic attacks. Some were less effective than others. Cutting out gluten and caffeine just made me cranky. Others, like running, meditation, and prayer, are still things that help me get out of bed some mornings. Yet, I have found that one of the most effective ways to fight the darkness is in the very place that it tries to keep me away from, in the faces of the 96 students that I teach. My job asks me to question, engage, and frankly love on small humans. They fill me with encouragement and awe. Now, normally the traits that you associate with anxiety and introvert don't exactly overlap with middle school English teacher. But that's the paradox I've been living for most of my adult life. It's incredibly rewarding, but immensely tiring. The double-edged sword of teaching is the presence of people all day, every day. It can feel a little draining. Many of us aptly describe it as having to be on. Teaching requires a tremendous sense of presence, asking you to engage and sometimes perform when you don't necessarily feel like it, all the while knowing that every interaction you have with a kid can change the culture of your classroom for that day, if not longer. The stakes are incredibly high. When I first started teaching, I would end the day emotionally exhausted. I didn't know how I was going to be able to do this for the rest of the week, much less the rest of the year. After a while, though, I realized that teaching wasn't a performance at all. It was a relationship. My students didn't need me to entertain them. My students needed me to enter into kinship with them. They needed me to care about them, and in return, they needed to be able to care about me too. And in this way, my students save my life every single day. When I'm dealing with depression or anxiety, it's hard to be around anyone. The darkness whispers in my ear that I won't be able to handle it, that it will be too overwhelming, and that frankly, I should just spare the world of my unlovable self. And this is the darkness that my students are able to fight with their mere existence. Teaching, I have realized, is one of the purest expressions of joy that I can ask for. My students approach the world with such a sense of zeal and hope, it's hard to not feel those things spark inside me too. So whether it's a series of gecko-based questions or gardenias from a student's garden, just because I am gifted their sense of wonder every single day. And just like that, I realize that the voice that tells me that life is not worth living or that I am not worthy of joy is a lie. I somehow struggle through my morning routine and get to the front door. I want to reach for the doorknob, but just looking at it, it feels overwhelming to think of actually seeing real people. You can't walk out there. You're just going to screw everything the minute you walk out the door. Yes, it is tempting to stay. I could get back into bed and let myself fall deeper into the darkness. Even after years of trying to manage my anxiety, there are still nights when this happens, where all I can do is lay in bed, wrap myself in sheets, curl myself into the fetal position like a rolled up flag, trying to survive the storm, and cry and cry and cry as I try and claw my way out of the darkness. A death knell, a wail, a rallying call trying to call my body back home to the light. But today is not one of those days. When I first became a teacher, it was because I wanted to uplift, support, and validate students, particularly those from historically disenfranchised communities. That's still the center of my work, particularly working with students to create a place where all aspects of their identity can be explored, from their race, to their culture, to their gender, to their sexuality, to, yes, even their experiences with mental health. Because it's important for me to normalize conversations about mental health in my classroom, I am open with my students about my own mental health journey, to an extent. Now, it's a very important line to mind as far as what you will share when you open up your personal lives to your students. I never go into details, nor would it be okay for me to turn my classroom into a therapy session. Besides, I think my actual therapist can probably handle my stuff a lot better than a group of 13-year-olds. But when we read books that deal with anxiety and suicide, or when, I don't know, everyone on your island thinks they're gonna get blown up for 38 minutes, I would say that it's pretty probable that these things are gonna come up. So without fanfare or shame, I'll share with kids that I empathize with the characters' panic attacks because I have those too. After the missile scare, I told them that my therapist and I were gonna have a lot to talk about that week. And we did. The thing is, I have to assume that I have students on some kind of a similar journey. 20% of 8 to 18-year-olds struggle with some kind of mental health issue. The sad statistic is that it takes, on average, 10 years for people to get the support that they need. Many of us as teachers see that more and more students are struggling with mental health. We hear their voices in our classrooms every single day. I read it in the journals my students write for me, where they tell me that they had a panic attack in the middle of a group project, or they can't help but feel sad all the time, even though they don't know why. And the thing is, I understand why they feel that way. I remember what it was like to hate the fact that I was so emotional or too sensitive, or to just have these waves of sadness or fear wash over me that made it really hard to just be a kid sometimes. Yes, my parents were great and tried to get me help, but the shame of that followed me all the way through school and college and all the way even into my teaching career. At some point, I was able to publicly name and own my own mental health struggle. And when I did, one of the biggest benefits was that people came out of the woodwork and said, "This happens to me too." The thing is, shame is a construct built on the idea that we are alone in the places that we struggle, or that people would judge us if they knew something about us. By publicly sharing my own mental health journey, I realized that I had nothing to be ashamed of. I wasn't alone. And this is the sense of support and validation I want my students to find in my classroom. In a world where it takes 10+ years for people to get help, I want them to know that they are worthy of love and that they deserve to love themselves enough to get the help that they need. I want them to know that the struggles of their hearts and minds are just as deserving of my compassion as the struggles that they are having with their homework. Somehow, I make it to my classroom, and I am sitting at my desk when I am surprised by a group of 8th graders who bounce through my front door. "Hi, coach." Hey, guys. How are you doing? "We're good, but we need help with a project. Do you think that you could help us?" "Yeah, absolutely. What do you need?" "Okay. We need to design something for science class that helps someone. Do you have a problem that we could help you with?" Yeah, choose them. Let's see. Well, there's probably the ones that you can guess. I coach 3 of them in track, so I start listing the things that they probably feel too. My knees ache sometimes, or sometimes my quads and hamstrings are really tight, or my back aches. I look at them and I can't help but think about this morning. And sometimes I have panic attacks. I've had them since I was your age, so I guess you could try and do something about that. I expect the worst. A gasp, a snarky comment, anything. They don't flinch. Okay, aching back. Yeah, okay, this is good. This is good. We're gonna get to work, but if we have more questions, can we come ask you? Yeah, absolutely. If you need anything, you know where to find me, okay? Okay, thanks, coach, bye. And they walk out the door. And as they walk out, I realize that they are the light guiding me back home. I finally feel like I can breathe again. And it's time to get to work.